Hello lovely people, how are you all doing today? I hope you are well. I am. I was planning to have a garden day again today, another garden day, because there's a lot to get on with. But the weather isn't playing ball. It's just on off rain all day, sometimes really quite heavy. So yeah, just change the plan, do indoor stuff instead. So right now I'm just finishing weighing the very last, oh that one's so overly ripe, it wants to burst. Yeah, this is the very last of my tomatoes. These ones were the ones I rescued the other day when I started to take the tomato plants down. I've already weighed, there's some that are still quite green. That's fine, just putting them all in the sink bowl for a minute. Because actually there's quite a few of them, they are ready to process. So they all need a wash before I process them. So I have weighed the green ones. I'm going to include the green ones in my total. It's not a huge amount, and I think I was mentioning in the garden, I'm pretty sure they will all ripen because, look, just one green one on that. That's a lovely truss, isn't it? Yeah, in the past, all my green ones have ripened. Right. Oh, it's just about the same as the previous one. So I've been writing, so I've done today's on a scrap and then I'm going to transfer it into this. So for my previous weighing sessions. So what I'm going to do now is, I'm going to do, oh let's pop those in the sink bowl. What I will do, oh I've just spotted one that's gone. Yeah, it's just gone, so. Actually, there have been a few eaten fresh that I haven't included in the weight, so I'm not going to take anything off for that one. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some maths now, because first I'm going to tot up the whole amount. I've got quite a good idea of what it's going to be, but I'm going to give you the information in both kilos and pounds, as in metric and, I've forgotten the word for the old, imperial. So I know, so in the UK, in Europe, we're all metric, but people of the generation above me, of which I know there's quite a few to watch, you're probably still in pounds rather than kilos. So I'll do the conversion. I'm also then going to convert pounds, as in the currency, British pounds, to American dollars. So I'm going to do all the converting for you, and yeah, let's see how much money I have essentially saved myself by growing, in the end, I think it was 23 tomato plants, of which 9 were along the back wall, just draped over the back wall, which didn't do quite so well and got massacred by pigeons or gulls, I'm not sure which. So what did I say, 23, so minus those 9, it was 14. 3 of which were out the front, but they grew big like the back garden ones too. Anyway, right, let me go and do the maths and then we'll have our final tot up, and then I've got all sorts of other bits and bobs to show and share with you today. Right, last little bit. Okay, this is the dollar amount times the weight. Oh, it's just crazy. Right. So, I've cheated, I've used my calculator today. I really try most of the time to do my maths, either mental arithmetic or on paper. I think it's good brain exercise, but just for speed today. So, okay, so let's talk first of all about the price. So organic tomatoes, quite a range of prices, but it seems I've settled in the end on an average of £10 per kilo. That's $13.37 US dollars per kilo. I know that there are some which they go up £15 or more, so I've kept it on the low side. that per pound, as in a pound of weight, not pound money, so that translates, for those of you who like the imperial weight measurements, to £4.55 a pound of Toms, or in the US, just a little over $6. So that's where we're starting at. Gorgeous organic tomatoes if I was to go out and buy them. I have harvested, so what do we say? So it's 23 plants, 9 of which were a little bit doff, straggly. Oh no, 10 were doff and straggly because the one that I did in the shade as an experiment. So it's actually 13 decent plants. So I had 13, pretty good plants. Is that right? 10, 3, yeah, that's right. So from 13 good plants, and the other 10, let's say they performed more like half a plant, so let's call them 5. So in other words, from about 18 plants, because I know people often ask me about, in terms of self-sufficiency, how many plants do we need to plant? Actually, it came up after I'd done the Q&A videos. Someone had written to me to ask how many plants to plant for self-sufficiency. Of course, it depends what you eat. So just doing my maths now, okay, so let's come to the monetary value. I already had the seed, I'd saved my own seeds, so that didn't cost anything. The ones that were planted in the grow type bags, I think I ended up spending about, because I had other stuff in grow bags, maybe £35 to £40 on compost. But my compost was expensive because I was buying small bags and carrying it home myself, whereas next year I can buy bigger bags, which is more economical, and have them delivered. So I'll get them from Nixon's, my local hardware store, but they'll deliver. So maybe I spent 35 quid. Oh, and new bean poles this year. So I needed 10, 30, so I had 13 8-foot bean poles, and I think they're £1 each, so that's another thing. So I've spent a little under 50 quid to do my tomato planting. Obviously I spent time, I had to clear that bed, God help me. I've just, since that gardening video you saw, I've gone through it again to weed it, and there's one weed in particular, I'll talk about that when we're in the garden, which is a pain in the aspidistra. So there was time involved in that. But oh my goodness, I am so glad that on the 23rd of April this year, just less than 3 weeks after moving in, I thought, do you know what? Let's plant some tomato seeds. Maybe I'll make a bit of space in the garden for them this year. So glad, because at £10 a kilo, for me to have bought them, actually don't worry about the kilos now if you're an in pounds person. What would it have cost me to buy those at an average-ish, on the low end of average for organic tomatoes? It would have cost me £341. Crazy. In dollars, US dollars, $456. That's mental. So in other words, yeah, that 41 quid. I've pretty much saved myself £300 by growing my own. And I've seen this a lot over the years. I see allotment stuff comes up in my Facebook feed and all that kind of stuff. And I was in a few groups for a while, and then I took myself out because I keep seeing the same myth over and over again, that it doesn't pay to grow your own because you're spending so much on compost and seeds and what have you. But I'm showing today that that's an absolute myth. £300 worth of veg free. The 41, that's what it cost compost and bean poles. What did I say? 35, 45, 48. Yeah, it's roundabout. It's about 300 quid that I have saved by growing my own, and that's just the tomatoes. Obviously everything else I grew was on a much smaller scale, but I'm going to have 4 or 5 squash to harvest. I've got kale that will keep coming. I've got chard that's going to keep coming. I had some beans. I had some cucumbers. All for very, very, very little outlay. The biggest outlay is my time and effort. But again, think of it like instead of going to the gymnasium, go to the garden or the allotment and do your work there. Save on a gym membership and put that time into the garden. Right, now also I worked out, someone had asked me, would I keep track of my portions that I would freeze? How many have I ended up with? Well, I haven't, sorry, I didn't keep track because I kept using some, and obviously I was using a lot fresh. But, so a tin of tomatoes is 400 grams. So my weight, my total weight of 34.1 kilos, divided by a tin, it works out, it's the equivalent of, I grew 85 and a quarter tins of tomatoes this year. 85 tins of tomatoes. That's fantastic from a tiny, tiny little garden. So that works out, if we do it throughout the whole year, 52 weeks of the year, it works out at just a little under, it's actually 1 2/3, so a little under 2 tins of tomatoes per week. So that's not quite self-sufficient for me. So it's back to this question of how many plants do you plant for self-sufficiency? Because I would say I need at least 2 tins of tomatoes a week, probably more like, I'm more like 2.5, sometimes even 3. So going back to the number of plants I had, we had 13 goodies, 10 which I'm calling 5 because they weren't quite so great. So I had 18 plants, which is why in London I used to grow a minimum, because let's think now, 8, 16, I used to grow a minimum of 32 tomato plants each year. So, and what did I just say, 80? So actually, and then I'd have spare ones dotted about, so it might be 36, even 40. So in other words, in London, on my allotment, I grew double the amount of plants, and that would have given me the equivalent of 2, 3 and a bit tins each week throughout the year. And that's how I ended up being for the last, gosh, 10, 12, like 13, 14 years of being self-sufficient in tomatoes, of never buying tomatoes. Yay! So, okay, I hope that exercise was interesting for folk. It really just, I think it's well worth doing something like that every now and again, because it really goes to show, A, what you can achieve if you're willing to put the work in, and B, what you can achieve even in a small space. And again, just in terms of figuring out your own needs for self-sufficiency. So for example, if you only use 1 tin of tomatoes a week, you can think, well, Vivi had 18 plants and that was 1 2/3. So actually maybe with 15 plants, that would be enough for 1 tin a week. Right, carrying on, I've got all sorts of bits and bobs to show and share, just making a bit of space on the table. First of all, a couple of thank yous. I've got some honesty seeds that came from Amanda, but I love, look at this image, isn't that gorgeous? This is near Glasedale Moor, this is in North Yorkshire, and oh, it made me smile so much, Amanda, thank you, because this area of the North York Moors, it's pretty much halfway between my sister's house and on the coast Whitby. So my sister lived right on the edge of the moors. She loved heather. In fact, some of her ashes are scattered up here. So as soon as I saw it, I knew, I know where this is. It's North Yorkshire, it's on the way to Whitby. How lovely. So it's famous for its heather. I don't know if my camera will pick it up, but in the distance on the moors you can really, really see the heather there. If you're ever visiting North Yorkshire, if you want to go and see the heather in particular, because it is magnificent, especially if you're an overseas visitor, you might be, say, visiting London and Bath and Stratford. If you can, head north and get into Yorkshire, visit the Dales, beautiful, beautiful Dales, and then keep going a bit further north to get to the North York Moors. So for the heather, this is Ling heather, L-I-N-G heather. That's the most prolific heather up there. There are a few other varieties. I can't remember the names of them. But Ling heather, it flowers, it's sort of mid to end of August, and then it will run into September as well. So I would say, if you're going to go and visit, don't go on the August bank holiday because the roads will be packed with people trying to get down to Whitby. It'll be packed with cyclists having a cycling day out in the moors. Packed with walkers everywhere. But yeah, if you're ever planning a trip to North Yorkshire, plan it for end of August, beginning of September, and you'll get to see the beautiful heather. So as I say, Amanda has sent me some honesty seeds, and the honesty is white, so that is going to be hopefully something I'll have for the shade garden. I've never grown honesty before. I think it's probably quite easy, I'm not sure. I'll do my research, as I do with any new to me plant. But actually, talking of the shade garden, I've got a big box here with a toy in it to show you. I'm excited and terrified, stay tuned. I have another thank you, this is from Kay. I loved this, Kay. She was going through some papers. Actually, I can't remember, were they from a charity shop? So she bought a kind of a bundle of old papers for doing junk journaling, and she saw this one sheet. I'll read it to you. It says it's a train timetable. It's part of it. It should continue down here, but anyway, it's the direct route from London Waterloo to Southampton, Bournemouth, Swanage, Dorchester and Weymouth, but it also links up with the, is that more rain? Oh, did it go darker on camera then? It's lashing down again. Sorry, distracted. It also links up with the ferries to the Isle of Wight, so you end up with Southampton Royal Pier, goes over to Cowes, West Pier, onto Newport and Ventnor, and eventually, oh no, Gosport, that's back over here. So unfortunately the bit with Swanage is missing, but I love, and of course that's the train I have taken for years and years and years and years, every trip down here. So I'll find it in a charity shop. I'm going to find a little frame for this, probably a sort of a mahogany, a dark wood frame, because it suits the period. And of course, because it shows that the train's going right through to Swanage. It is of course before beaching, the beaching cuts, so before that line was closed. I have just the vaguest memory of those years, because it closed when I was 5, so this is a memory from when I was 3 or 4 of coming all the way through to Swanage, and Grandad picking us up in the love bug. He had a VW Beetle, and chugging up to the village of Langton. So I'm going to get it framed, and it's going to go in the downstairs loo. I keep calling it the downstairs loo, you know what I mean? Because I've got some of my bits and bobs of railway memorabilia in there anyway. And I'm thinking, when I come to decorate, I get rid of those horrible black tiles. Now, I'm not one for theme decorating, but I think it is going to have a little bit of a theme in there that you'll have no idea of when the door is closed, but when you go in, I'm going to make it look, I'm thinking about this, like a 1930s, 1940s railway station loo, except it'll be cleaner than a railway station loo. So cream walls, and then either green tiles to the floor or green tongue and groove to the floor. That deep, lovely green, and then all my little bits of railway memorabilia can be up on the walls. So that's really lovely, Kay, thank you. She also sent, she said that she'd never heard of Coco de Pampol before she met me, and now she's found some and is growing some. And another beautiful card, simply called Alliums by Laura Stone. Sorry, I didn't credit the photographer of this one, did I? This is a photograph by R.J. Buxton. I've just noticed it's about the bottom, it says printed in Whitby. Fab. There are other views from the series. You see? Oh, did you hear the train toot? Perfect. Oh, and of course, I can't remember what the line is called up there. There's a couple of heritage lines, aren't there, in oh, I forgot the name of where one of them starts. Oh, it's gone out of my head, but there's a bookshop there that specialises in transport books. and it's where my sister and I took a load of my dad's books after he died, because he had tons of books on buzzes, as my dad would say. And then I've also had this fantasticness sent to me by Antonia, sorry. It's a skirt she bought. Do you recognise the material? Oh, it smells lovely. Oh, it smells really lovely, Antonia. She said it's no use to her, and I can, cut it up to have extra fabric for when I get to making cushions, because remember I bought a dress with the fabric. Originally I was going to make cushions for the front room, but I think actually what I want to do is make cushions for my Sue bench in the garden, because they'll look great in the strong light of summer. But also the card, Antonia, sorry, it's because Amanda sent the seeds. Even before I'd got the card halfway out of the envelope, I squealed with delight because I knew what it was, and this too might have to have a little frame. La Vuelta! The Vuelta a España. So for those who don't know, the Vuelta a España it's basically Spain's equivalent of the Tour de France. So it's one of the grand stage races of the year, so it's 3 weeks, or it's 21 stages done over 23 days, because they're allowed 2 rest days. But I love that. It's such a kind of an iconic look of cycling, isn't it? So I think that's going to have a little... I need a whole wall of gallery just for all these lovely things I want to display. Right, okay, now I've got a library book which I really need to talk about today, because I need to take it back to the library tomorrow. And I have to thank, excuse me, let me whistle a little bit. I have to thank Emma for mentioning this, because it came from, if you remember, I read and talked about, reviewed the book Less by Patrick Grant, about buying less and being happier. And Emma mentioned this book off the back of that video, and I can completely understand why. So I have just read Chris Van Tuliken's book, main title, Ultra Processed People. Why do we all eat stuff that isn't food, and why can't we stop? Oh my goodness, what a read. So Chris Packham is quoted on the front, incendiary and infuriating. It really, really is. Now, I kind of felt it might be a bit cold to Newcastle for me, in that I'm not really into ultra-processed foods anyway. I never have been. I've generally been a home cook my own stuff. So for instance, I don't use a bottle of pasta sauce when I'm doing pasta. I make my own sauce. Or, if I'm making a curry, I combine all my spices and oils and things. I don't buy a jar of cook-in curry sauce. You get the gist. But also just simple things like ice cream, biscuits, crisps, basically anything in a packet, I generally don't have in my life anyway. There are a few exceptions, of course, so let's think of an exception. Crackers sometimes, but even crackers tend to be minimal ingredients. So I thought, this is going to be cold to Newcastle, but oh my goodness, this was so eye-opening, even for me who thought I knew quite a bit on the subject. He does say at one point, quite near the beginning, that probably by the end of the book you won't want to eat any of that kind of stuff anymore. And actually it shouldn't be called food. It's not. It's industrially, mechanically produced stuff that isn't going to kill us, that we can eat, but it's not food. In the same way that we could say, cardboard box, colour it, flavour it, you can eat it, it's not going to kill you to eat it, but it is not food. Wow. Yeah, I highly recommend it. And I think especially if you do live on a lot of that stuff. So for me, bread was one of my culprits until the beginning of this year. I love bread. It's nigh on impossible to go to a supermarket and buy bread that's not full of junk. Really, the only way to eat decent bread is to make your own. So I'm glad that's gone. especially glad on reading it. And I think that's enough to put me off ever buying commercially produced bread again. I mean, it is really shocking. And it's, you know, the sort of the ripples of this go on beyond just what we're putting into our bodies. So there's, in terms of, say, the waste produced, so packaging and all that plastic. Yeah, I'm back on that subject. Oh, I've marked it. So I mentioned in the Q&A that I will be giving up wild deodorant. I've just refilled it now. What am I on? Candy floss. I've got 2 refills left, so probably by the end of December I'll be buying a new deodorant from a different company that's not Wild, because Wild were bought by Unilever. And coming back to this, I think they're saying the four worst culprits in terms of selling billions of products in single-use bottles, sachets and packets. So single-use, in other words, they're thrown away, selling them to, particularly in developing countries. Those companies are Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Nestle, and you guessed it, Unilever. And that's why I won't be buying Wild anymore. I'm not going to support a country who want to just trash our beautiful planet. So it covers all sorts in here. It is mainly about the food. I made a note, actually, there's one particular section about smell. It was really, really fascinating. And again, it's one of those things where you think, I know about smell, you know, we smell, and part of taste is to do with smell. Really, really interesting. I highly recommend it. I really liked the book as well in terms of, there's a lot of reference to research. Now, anyone who's done a nursing degree in the last few years, because I know nursing's changed a lot in sort of so I know that some of you are retired nurses. You would have trained in the 80s maybe, before things got quite as academic as they've become now. But anyone who's trained recently, a big part of our training is to do with academics and research, and how to discern the quality of a research paper. Is it any good? Who paid for the research paper? So if a research paper says Coca-Cola is fine to have a litre of Coca-Cola every day, it won't do you any harm whatsoever and it won't rot your teeth. Yay! The research says so. But if you find out that Coca-Cola paid for the research, suddenly we need to be a little bit sceptical about the results. So he talks about research and those kind of, how we need to be a bit discerning about which research we use. But also how research, how tests and experiments are set up. Really fascinating. I love all that kind of stuff. So I think if you are, as a lay person, if you've never studied any of the sciences, whether it's human sciences like, medicine or anything, I think you would find that really interesting too. I certainly did. I mean, my own interest is sort of, from the point of view of sort of pathophysiology and disease pathways, epidemiology, that sort of thing. Yeah, loved it. Really fascinating. Angry making at times. Angry making that I feel we are being duped so much. And that's part of why he says, and why can't we stop? Why can't we stop? These things are designed to be cheap and addictive. And I know there are going to be people who say I think it's worth spending money on my food. After the roof over my head, the most important thing that I spend money on is food. If I have to go without TV streaming services, if I have to go without magazines, if I have to go without a new handbag every year, so be it. The food that I put in my body is the most important thing. You all know that. So there is a bit of chat about, how much, as a nation we now pay on our food in terms of disposable income, how much we give to food rather than giving to entertainment and, holidays and all this kind of stuff that is not essential. Anyway, you get the gist. But back to that cheap and addictive food, I do still truly believe, and never mind being organic, but I do truly believe that it is cheaper to cook from scratch than to even buy the cheapest of cheap pre-packaged foods. Look, that is dependent, and there will be a small section of our society, and it breaks my heart, there will be a small section of our society who don't have cooking facilities and who have no choice but to eat this horrible stuff. It's an absolute crying shame, people who can't get into council housing because council houses were all sold off, so they're living in bed and breakfasts, they're living in HMOs, whatever it is, they simply don't have cooking facilities. They might, if they're lucky, have a microwave in the room, but they certainly won't have a stovetop. So I do acknowledge, I don't accept it, I think it's hideous, I acknowledge that there are a few of our poorest people who simply cannot cook because they don't have the facilities, but I'm sure there are great swathes of poor folk. I mean, I don't ever call myself poor, but I would, if you looked at my numbers, I'd be classed as living in poverty. I don't feel like it, I live really well and happily, but I'm in that group, I'm in that poverty group, but I've got a kitchen and a stove. So if you've got a kitchen and a stove, you can eat okay. Right, now very quickly, oh, big box. I realised some of that sounded negative and I didn't mean it to be. It's a fantastically interesting book and really eye-opening in places. And as I said, I came to it thinking, yeah, what's it going to tell me that I don't know already? Wow, how wrong was I? But also, like I said, about all the research, that kind of stuff, it's just really interesting. I love science. Right, in the box, I have been sent something. Now, I talked about this a little bit in the past as well. It's really heavy. I have been approached in the past numerous times by companies saying, we want to send you something and you can show it in a video. So they're not paying me to make a promotional video. They're not paying me anything. Let's just be clear about that. And over the years, I've said no to everything because either A, it's not something I need or I'm going to use. For instance, I've been offered grow lights. I've been offered heated propagators. I don't use any of that. I grow everything with nature as far as possible. Do you remember the one of the Wellington boots? They were beautiful, gorgeous, stunning Wellington boots. But then I looked up and I thought, oh yeah, you can send me those for free if you want. And then I looked up the price and there was something like £280 a pair. So I said no thank you, because I know that my viewers can't afford £280 for a pair of boots. So I'm not going to promote something my viewers can't buy, or indeed that I can't buy. I'm not going to. Anyway, so this is an item, and I've forgotten the price, but this is an item that I was actually in need of and actually thinking about either buying or hiring. So I said, you know what, yeah, you can send it to me. Now, if it's rubbish, I'll say so. I'm not, because they're not paying me, I'm not being paid to promote it. Like I said, if I think it's rubbish, I will say so. What is it? What is it, Vivi? Right, it's battery operated. So I've got all the batteries and the battery charger. It is, my friends, and I don't know how good it's going to be, and I'm not going to take the cover off properly yet, so I don't know how to read the instructions. It is. It's a battery operated chainsaw. It's not plugged in, so I can take that off. So there we go. Because I need to take the battery out. Now obviously when I get back down to the stumpy stump, this won't be any good. But it might help with some of the big branches. I can get the branches a ways down. Brilliant. However, what I have to say is I am utterly terrified of using this. Utterly. It scare the living daylight out of me. So I'll be really, really carefully reading the instructions. I'll start on a small branch, but make sure it's sturdy so it's not whipping about and doing all that. I'll show you when I give it a go. And like I said, if I find that you know, I'm okay using it, I'm comfortable using it, I think it might be a useful thing to pass on to others, because I'm sure there are people out there like me who, I mean, I've just had a lifelong fear of power tools. It took me years to get a power, what do you call it, jigsaw. To get a jigsaw. I've always sawn by hand. Also, you know, sawing by hand, it's good exercise, isn't it? So we'll see. They've been kind enough to send it, so I'll give it a go. I will give you an honest report about it. And it may be, got some very fetching safety goggles. I've got better safety goggles than that. I've got to say, they completely cover my eyes. So they're not, so there's no gaps. There's no gaps. I will give it a go and let you know. And this company have also said to me that if I like it and I'm happy with using it and I feel comfortable using it, then and I want to share that with my viewers, that they will give me a discount code for anyone who wants to purchase one from them. That's not going to happen until I try it and I'm happy with it. 100% I have to be happy with this before I'm going to recommend it. In exactly the same way as I am with books. You know, over the years there have been a couple of books which I've said, absolute rubbish, didn't finish it, chuck it over my shoulder. But when I think something is worth sharing, I will share it. Anyway, I'm just looking at the clock and I've overrun by 7 minutes, I think, today. So I think I better shut up, hadn't I? Next time you see me, please, please, please give us a break in this weather. It should be in the garden for some winter. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm thinking about this already. It should be for some winter planting. So join me then for that, if the weather changes. Otherwise, we'll do something else. In the meantime, stay well, lovelies. And just to say as well with this, I had to order it for my library. They didn't have it in. It took a few days. So I think if it's something you're interested in, after you've watched the video, get straight onto your library and book a copy, because you might have to wait a while. They seem to get reserved and used quite a lot. Waffling now. See you soon for the next one. Until then, cheerio, lovelies.